Good afternoon, everyone. Hope everyone can hear me okay. My name is Stephen Lamb. I'm the Vice President of Workforce Development at the Fort Smith Regional Chamber of Commerce, and we are excited to have you participating in our very first of its kind professional development session that accompanies our signing day initiative. And so this session will be recorded, and you as students will have the opportunity to come back and reference this material, as well as we're going to share this with your districts so that your classmates and peers have the opportunity to take advantage of this also. So this professional development session is hosted as a part of Signing Day. Signing Day is an event hosted by the Chamber in partnership with industries and in partnership with the University of Arkansas at Fort Smith to connect graduating seniors with career opportunities in our region. And so we're excited that you're taking advantage of this opportunity to sharpen your skills and better prepare yourself for that opportunity. Hopefully you'll get something out of this session and the ones to come. I'm sure that you will. I'd like to introduce our guest speaker today, Ms. Lauren Turner. I'll read from her bio. Lauren Turner is the current recruiting manager at ArcBest and has been with the company for over 3 years. Prior to ArcBest, Lauren worked for a long-term care company and served as a corporate recruiter and then recruiting manager for nearly 8 years. Lauren is a Southside High School alumna and after high school attended Westminster College in Fulton, Missouri, receiving her degree in international business. In her spare time, Lauren enjoys running obstacle course races and doing CrossFit with her husband. We are grateful that Lauren is going to share her expertise and talent with us today to discuss business communication and social media. The goal of this session is to better equip you students with the opportunity to understand what is expected out of communication in the workplace, things you should consider about your social media accounts before you start pursuing a career opportunity. And with that, any other introductions or comments from the staff or the university on the call, we'll let Lauren take off.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Stephen. Welcome, everybody. My name is Lauren Turner. And just to get us started today, when Stephen asked me to do a presentation on business communication and social media, I said yes immediately. This is a topic that I feel really strongly about. And I think it's one that is really important to discuss, especially with our young emerging talent. And because you guys are getting ready to graduate high school, you're moving on to college, you're getting ready for those job interviews. So there's a lot that's coming up in your life that this is very relevant for. It's something that's incredibly important. And while it's a simple concept, it's just communication. It can be difficult to navigate at times, and especially as our world continues to change. So I'm glad to be able to discuss this today with you all. Now, when I look back over the last year, our world, mine especially, both personally and professionally, it was completely disrupted. The COVID-19 pandemic, it was something we didn't foresee coming. To be quite honest, I never thought I would experience something like this in my lifetime. What this pandemic has forced us to do, the workforce, some of us, we've had to retreat to our homes. Many of us went to virtual school, virtual classes, our jobs, some of them went virtually. So life was somewhat difficult adjusting to the new norm. So circumstances became, communication became more important than ever. And I think the ways we communicate morphed as a result of all of those things. I look back at ArcBest over the past year, and we made many, many changes and had to create policies and rules for people working remotely. Things like ensuring people dressed appropriately for their Teams or Zooms meetings, and ensuring people use their cameras when speaking with their bosses on a Teams call. Those are some things that we saw some changes to with our company as it related to communication with one another. Now, before I go into detail about business communication, I want to mention a little bit about the company I work for, because it will be relevant as we talk through certain topics today. So hopefully y'all can see my screen here. Okay. So just a little bit about our company. First, we are headquartered here in Fort Smith, Arkansas. We have 2 main campuses here in the Fort Smith River Valley, one over by Chaffee Crossing and one over by Southside High School. We were founded in 1923, and it's crazy to think that we're approaching our 100-year anniversary. Our company has grown over the course of 100 years, and we have over 13,000 employees, and we're exceeding revenue over $3 billion now. But who are we and what do we do? ArcBest, we are a leading logistics company. We consider all of our employees to be creative problem solvers, and we deliver solutions to our broad customer base. Our motto is "We'll find a way," and we do that through our knowledge and expertise by providing our customers with various shipment options and supply chain solutions. And of course, I just mentioned this, but our vision, "We'll find a way," it's helped us all stay really focused through this past year, through many of the challenges that 2020 brought us. So we're happy to refer to that simple vision to help us get through the struggles that we saw. Now, I think one of the most important things that I want to point out to you is our values. Our company has survived over 100 years because our leaders and our employees communicate our vision, and we live out our values every day. Whether you come to work for ArcBest down the road or you go to another company, research the company's values first. Our values are, creativity, integrity, collaboration, growth, excellence, and wellness. And those values, they were carefully selected because they were literally what we find ourselves doing each and every day at ArcBest. And why I wanted to brief you on those is because these are important things to know about companies that you choose to work for. Our vision and values are key to how we communicate with one another, and they help define our success. So that's why today's topic of discussing business communication is so important. So today I want to talk about what business communication is, why it's relevant for all of us to understand, and how social media plays into the business communications world. So first of all, business communication. This sounds so serious to me. But it's important to remember that business communication means many things. When I hear these words, I immediately think that business communication is defined by the way I speak to people that I work with. But really, it's more than that. By definition, business communication is the process of sharing information between people within and outside a company. Effective business communication is how employees and management interact to reach organizational goals. But there's a lot of different types of interactions, and that's kind of what I want to talk about today. So let's talk about this first type of interaction, face-to-face, or nowadays, face-to-screen. So we talk to people in person now more than ever before. Virtually through the use of Zoom, Teams meetings, and other virtual platforms. We even text, we email, we post on social media. The ways we communicate now to conduct business are so much more complex than in years past. It's also much faster, and now we have access to people that perhaps we normally wouldn't years ago. So some things that are important for us to note when you're communicating with someone in person or even virtually is that your words are just one part of the conversation. Your tone of voice and your appearance are also things to consider. Give the person that you're speaking with your utmost attention. Leave your phone alone, turn it over. Don't answer that text that just came through until your conversation's done. Choose your words wisely, and remember that your body language is also an indicator of how interested you are in the conversation. So it's always a good idea to sit up straight, don't slump, look at the camera, and be in the moment. There we go. Another type of communication is nonverbal. And nonverbal communication is interesting because sometimes what you don't say ends up being what the person you are interacting with actually hears. So this is a little exercise I want to do. So just kind of follow along with me if you've just joined. So this is an exercise that we did at ArcBest during one of our leadership training classes. Actually, one of the trainers, they went around to each participant before the class, and they gave each of us a piece of paper with an emotion listed. That trainer, he asked us to make a face displaying the emotion on the sheet of paper. And then he took our picture. So he then put all of these pictures together and put them up in front of our class and put them up on the screen for all of us to see. He then asked us to identify each emotion. Easy enough, right? Well, what was interesting was that there were some emotions that people identified differently. So, for example, let's take a look at this picture and just kind of think to yourselves, you know, what emotion would you assign each column as we go through? And let's just kind of follow along with me and see if you can guess the same thing. So column 1, let's see here. So when I look at this column, I think, okay, everyone looks pretty happy. There are smiles. So this must be an indicator of the happy emotion. That one seems pretty straightforward to me. Let's look at column 2. So the girl at the top, she kind of looks like she could be sad, but the girl in the middle, you know, maybe she's sad, or I don't know, to me that kind of looks perhaps she's unimpressed. And the guy on the bottom, that he is sporting a serious pout. So I'm going to label these as sad. Column 3, these look like anger to me, but honestly, the girl in the middle kind of looks as if she's smiling. So I can't really tell with her, but the others look angry. Column 4, this looks, based on the shock value on their face, perhaps this is surprise. I'm not sure if the gentleman on the bottom is surprised. He looks just unsure. Column 5, they kind of look annoyed to me. So I don't know, let's chalk it up as annoyed. Column 6, well, by the looks of everyone's eyebrows, this looks like they're angry to me. So that's what I'm going to label column 6 as. And then lastly, column 7. This one kind of looks like column 4 in a way, but so I'm not really sure. So let's see what these emotions are. Now, some of these emotions, if you're following along, to me, they kind of mimic each other. For example, I had a difficult time differentiating between fear and surprise. So what I'm trying to show you here is that this kind of proves that people can misinterpret things, and it's nobody's fault. It's simply just our own interpretation. But it just reminds us to be extra mindful and deliberate for how we come across. So think about your facial expressions when you're doing these virtual meetings with everybody too. So this is kind of my favorite slide. Maybe it's because of Ron Burgundy, but another form of nonverbal communication is the way we dress. How we dress communicates to others if we are taking something seriously or not. Every office has a dress code. Your schools have dress codes. Don't break them. These are basic rules, and when and if they're broken, you're communicating to your boss or your teachers or professors that you can't follow the most basic of rules. So if in doubt, err on the conservative side if you're unsure what's considered appropriate. So At ArcBest, for example, we call it a dress for your day policy. And this allows us to wear jeans and a nice blouse or shirt on days when we aren't interacting with customers or leaders. However, if you're going into a presentation or meeting with leadership, you probably want to dress up and wear that jacket and tie. So that's what we mean by the dress for your day policy. So even though our world has shifted to those virtual interactions, at least be like Ron Burgundy and ensure that you're professional from the waist up. So I think that's very relevant in this case, since our teams and our teams meetings and our Zoom meetings, I often hear stories about people wearing sweatpants and a jacket and tie to a meeting, which is totally fine if you don't plan on standing up and having people see you. So think through your day and use your best judgment there. And now on the same topic though, as it relates to social media, make sure your profile picture is appropriate. You don't want to give off the wrong impression there either. And it's interesting right now, you know, being on social media, I'm actually friends with my director, my vice president, and my chief of HR on Facebook. So people are more connected now than ever before. So kind of keep in mind, think to yourself, how many people are going to see this picture? Another form of nonverbal communication, don't be late. Whether you show up on time or not, it's really important. Tardiness is communicating that you don't care. If you see a pattern in getting to work or school 5 minutes late, set your clock back a little bit. That's a simple thing. If you do encounter a rare delay, and let's face it, that happens, just be sure to let someone know in your office when you plan on arriving so they'll know when to expect you. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that you're easily forgiven when you communicate. So keep that in mind. Okay. So in the world of business, now even in school, and Dawn and I were just mentioning this, with everything shifting to allow that virtual element, written communication is a big deal. When I was in high school, emailing a teacher wasn't anything I had to think about. We didn't do that. And I think that's different now. So when you're emailing your teachers or your professors, and in the workforce, your leaders and coworkers, focus on the 5 C's. Always ensure that your communication is clear, ensure that it's concise, that it's correct, complete, and always be courteous. It's super important to ensure that your emails are just that, and at the same time, when you receive an email from someone, ensure that you thoroughly read it. Read your emails. I have fallen victim to responding to an email that was from my boss, and I was asking a follow-up question to his email. Well, come to find out, the answer was in the original email that he had sent. So, we're not perfect, but make sure you read those emails thoroughly, because it will prevent you from having one of those embarrassing responses from your boss that says, per my last email. So just make sure you thoroughly read those. And it's the same concept for, back to email really quickly. Now, when you are emailing, you also just want to make sure you don't have any typos. You want to come across as professional, and for goodness sakes, don't yell unless you would in person. So, proofread those emails, make sure you don't have the whole thing in uppercase, and just check those before you send them. Same concept for texting. I regularly text my boss, my boss's boss, and even at times my chief. Make extra sure that the person you're exchanging text messages with understands the text lingo that you're using. So this is a cringeworthy example that I found about the use of LOL and how it got misinterpreted. So here you have a dad and a child. It says from the dad, "Mom's back in the hospital, LOL." What? Why is that funny? It's not funny. Why would you laugh out loud? I thought it meant lots of love. So, you know, similar to the facial expression chart, misinterpretations can happen regularly. So make sure you limit your use of acronyms, or make sure that you understand the meaning before you use them to prevent those awkward moments. All right. Now, my favorite topic, social media. So literally everything that I've kind of walked through thus far, face-to-face, how you dress, what you say and write, it's all relevant in the world of social media too, and probably becomes even more relevant since once you post something on the internet, it is forever. So I cannot stress that enough. But you know, I can remember when I was in college, and this is kind of a funny story, but I remember when Facebook was just coming out. At that time, literally, you know, I'm not proud of this, but everyone would utilize Facebook to post their party photos on there and talk about where the parties were going to be held on campus for the following weekend. So it was literally being used as a social network in the most literal sense, nothing professional. Well, fast forward a few years, as I'm getting ready to graduate college, I can still remember the day that I can remember the day when my grandmother asked to be my friend on Facebook. And I can remember thinking to myself, wow, do I really want to do this? My point being, now is the time to have total awareness about what you're posting and who and how you're interacting with others on social media. I can remember when I first began recruiting, and LinkedIn was really the only thing we used as it related to social media networking. It's so interesting now because our company, ArcBest, literally has its own Instagram page. We have a Facebook page. We have a Twitter account. We haven't created a TikTok or a Snapchat yet, but who knows? Maybe those are on the horizon. But these platforms that once, you know, were only used to post your photos of your friends, you know, now it's a way for businesses to interact with potential job candidates too. So just it's important to be mindful of what you do on social media, because again, you know, whatever you put out there, it's forever. Most of these are considered personal platforms, but again, those are shifting towards business use each day. So I do want to focus on LinkedIn a little bit here. And many of you may already have a profile, but in case you don't, maybe this will be really helpful for you. But, you know, as of this day and age, LinkedIn is probably the biggest network that I know my team and I certainly use to source talent from. While that may not go on forever, if you are nearing graduation, I would highly encourage you to create a LinkedIn profile. And if you're unfamiliar with what LinkedIn is, think of it as a virtual resume. That's pretty much what the concept is. It's a virtual resume, so it's strictly to showcase your education, your experience, your skill sets. And it's also a great way to get noticed and recognized by companies who are searching for talent. So you can see here on my example, and I couldn't fit the whole thing on there, but you can see that I have my job title listed. My education or where I went to school is also listed, and the current company that I work for. So we mainly use LinkedIn to source full-time talent. However, we've also found this to be a great resource, and have found some great students for summer internships, as well as year-round part-time help at ArcBest. So that's something for you to consider. So this would be incredibly helpful for you to start thinking about if you haven't already. And I know Ron Ork is on the call today, and my team and I, we often host LinkedIn Lunch and Learns or how-tos with many of our area colleges, including UAFS. And so if you ever have any questions, or you want to understand how to build a profile, or what to put on there, what not to put, feel free to reach out to me or anyone on my team, any of the recruiters. We'd be happy to help you. And if anything, just connect with us so you can kind of get a feel for what everyone's profiles look like, and you can kind of mimic that build out. So LinkedIn is a huge networking tool that, again, I don't foresee us slowing down using that network anytime soon. So make sure, if you don't have a profile already, that you look into creating one, because again, it's probably the fastest and easiest way to get recognized and noticed by companies who are hiring. All right. So shifting gears slightly from LinkedIn, I do see a lot of people complain about certain things on social media, like their jobs, their companies, coworkers, and it's not just Twitter. I know that's what the screen says, but I'm going to show you some examples here, but these could be anywhere. So what you need to know and understand is that the theory about the 6 degrees of separation is totally valid. Chances are someone will see your post, and they will know someone who knows someone, and before you know it, you've overshared on social media. And as a result, you've hurt your image. So if a potential employer or future boss sees your negative posts, chances are they are going to think to themselves, I don't know if I want to deal with this person's drama on my team. So, think twice before you post something. Here's a couple of examples of some negative tweets that I do want to share with you. And you may not even think your post is super negative, and you think you're being funny, but it's really just kind of unnecessary. Okay. First cringeworthy example. What is the phone number to call if you have a coworker who keeps singing the Baby Shark song? Again, this isn't calling out any one company, or it's not calling out a particular person, but it just kind of, if your friends, obviously they know where you work, and you're making a post like this, it just kind of makes you look silly. Here's another one. There is no greater hell in this world than when a coworker recognizes your shoes under the bathroom stall and strikes up a conversation. As cringy as that, if that ever happens to you, just don't resort to social media, okay? That just makes the company and yourself kind of look, ugh. I just don't want to read stuff like that. Third, all right, the hierarchy of jerkish workplace behavior is as follows. Stealing someone's lunch, taking the last of the coffee and not making a new pot, not resetting the timer on the microwave. If you do any of these things, I hope you fall running full speed. That just sounds really aggressive to me. All right, last example. All company onboarding should include a segment about open office etiquette. Do you take a loud and lengthy Skype meeting at your desk? So again, these aren't calling anyone out or naming a company, but if people know where you work, this makes you and the company you work for look really bad. So just some basic guidelines here to remember. Never post negative things about your coworkers or your company or your school or your teachers or just anyone for that matter. Also, I tend to scroll through Facebook and I'll see these long, lengthy posts. And at the very bottom, some of these posts will say rant over. If you're ending a post with rant over, just delete it. Even if you aren't posting something at work, the way you behave on social media can have an impact on how others at work perceive you. So I do encourage you to keep your social media very light. I know I tend to use it as like an online scrapbook, pictures of my friends and family if we take vacations and stuff like that. So keep it pretty light. The golden rule of social media, like I mentioned a few moments ago, I had to think twice about adding my grandma as my Facebook friend. So don't post anything you wouldn't want your grandmother to see. That's a good rule of thumb. And we can't not avoid this topic either. So this is such a huge topic considering we just went through kind of a tumultuous election. I can't say this enough, but this is an extremely accurate graph about the outcome of arguments and political statements on social media. And guess what? Your social media argument did not change anything, and everyone is still ticked off. So this is more support for keeping your social media light. Don't get caught up in the mess. Don't post political stuff. If you see someone post something political, just keep scrolling. Simple as that. Okay, and like I just mentioned, you know, somewhat related to this topic, you know, think before you speak and post and text and tweet. When confronted with conflict, as that's just the reality that will happen, you know, think before you speak. And this is relevant for all forms of communication in the business world, face-to-face, face-to-screen, written, social media. People who blurt whatever is on their minds, they either spend quite a bit of time regretting or apologizing, or they're perceived as someone who can't be trusted. So when you're at the office, filter your speech. There may be times when you're confronted with conflict, so just be prepared and keep a level head so the issue doesn't escalate. And just remember, you know, how you portray yourself is so important. Who you interact with is important. How you interact with others, what you say, what you type, what you tweet, post, text, all of those things, including what you don't say, how you dress for an interview or a meeting, your facial expressions, all of these things, everything I mentioned, these all matter. They matter now, and they will still matter when you begin your career. All of these things make up your personal brand. So make sure it's good. And, you know, here's the thing, you know, you're probably thinking, wow, there is just so much information that I have to retain and think about, you know, as it relates to business communication and social media and all these things. Well, no one expects you to know everything especially when you start a new job. So, you know, for example, what I'm looking for in a good employee and what other companies are looking for, it's just someone who we can depend on and trust, and they have a good work ethic. Most job skills that you need are teachable. You don't have to be the smartest person in the room. Just work hard, show up on time, and ready to go to work. When you partner that with basic manners and respect for others, you're going to do just fine in today's workforce. Be intentional, and remember, Fort Smith has some amazing offerings for you. So start making those connections now. You know, follow me on LinkedIn, connect with me, as well as many of the other recruiting teams within the region. And know that there are opportunities and career paths waiting for you here in the River Valley. So that was a big, a lot of information really quickly, but I want to thank you all so much for letting me discuss this topic with you. And, I hope you found some of the material helpful. And if I can answer any questions, I'll be happy to.
Lauren, thank you so much. This was really great, and I'm excited for more students when we share this around to get the opportunity to learn from some of the things you shared with them. One point that you made that I just want to reiterate is the importance of how these students portray themselves when they're trying to enter the workplace. And that doesn't matter if a student's going to be interested in making $70,000 a year as a welder, or in the medical profession, or to come work in a corporate environment, like at ArcBest. In all of those cases, in any of those circumstances, it's really important that students be aware that they're being reviewed, and the posts that they've made and how they communicate via email with that recruiter, those things are being taken into consideration. And so I'm just really excited that you shared that message today, and look forward to spreading that word around to more students so that they can take advantage of that.
Awesome. You're very welcome. I hope it was helpful, and I guess, are there any questions?
So I've got a question for you. And that relates to something you touched on, but as a worker at ArcBest, how important is it that I am aware when I'm being communicated with? So whether that's checking email, checking my instant messenger, my corporate instant messenger, Teams, or whatever that is, what's the expectation to be available for communication?
That's a really good question. So, our company, we have a lot of different pieces of software that we use that help us indicate to others when we're available. So, email is probably our main form of communication, aside from just picking up the phone. But through, Microsoft Outlook, we encourage everybody to keep their calendars up to date so that we can schedule meetings during people's availability. And we also have we call it interaction desktop. But when we get to work in the morning, or when we walk to our office, if we're at home, we sign in to interaction desktop and click available. So it indicates that, hey, if someone needs something, you can call, you can text, whatever. But our teams, I mentioned our values because that, our collaboration, we're constantly in communication with one another, whether it be through email, or someone sends you an IM on Teams or text. So my team, we've got a group text going, we've got a group chat, we've got group email. So the only thing we don't have is pigeons. So we pretty much, I guess that's what makes a team successful, and that's what gets things done, is if you just have those open lines of communication.
Okay, so another question.
Yeah.
How low is the bar for a social media profile to lose your interest really quickly? I mean, as a recruiter with a corporate interest, how low is the bar of this person doesn't seem like someone that's reliable, this doesn't seem like someone who is serious about a career? How low does it have to go before you're like, I'm out, I'm not interested at all?
Oh, that's a tough question, because I'll say we use different methods of recruiting, but I'll talk about LinkedIn. So, or even just your resume, just when I look at someone's profile and I notice little things like a word is misspelled. It depends on the role I'm searching for too. So if it's a role that's maybe for the accounting department, and mistakes and errors of, the most minute errors, that's a big deal. I'm going to kind of think twice about that person's ability to spot check.
Right.
So little things like that. I think it just depends on the position, to be honest. So you are pretty lenient, as it relates to student workers, although we do have expectations. We hire as a cultural and values fit. So we do expect those basic things. Again, I mentioned before, a lot of the job skills, they're trainable, they're teachable. So if you are a coachable person, there's some opportunity there for you.
Okay, so I've got one more question, and then we can either open it up to if there are more. I don't mean to hog the rest of your time, or we can wave it in for this session and follow up with everybody afterwards. But I'm curious to know, in your experience as a recruiter and for these students' benefit, how far does being an effective communicator, how far can that compensate for maybe like if they have a skill deficiency, or they're really not, maybe they don't have the best GPA, but they really want this job and they're interested in being responsive, they're interested in being and trying to be engaging. How important is that in the equation? How much does that compensate for them?
That's kind of similar to my last answer. I think it depends on the role, but two, I think a lot of times, a lot of hiring managers, they will hire character over anything else. So if you can prove that you're a team player and you are coachable and a hard worker and you've got all these things, but maybe you're just missing a little something, that's not an end all for you if you're entering the workforce and you're like, man, I don't have everything that this job is listing. If you put your right foot forward, your best foot forward, sometimes that does help. I don't know what the perfect equation is there, if it's like an 80-20 or a 50-50. That's hard to say because it does depend on the hiring manager. But I will say that most companies, now some jobs, if you're hiring for a role that requires a certain certification or degree, if you're hiring an accountant, they have to have a CPA.
Right.
You can't hire for character there, if you don't have a CPA. But for most roles that don't have those specific requirements, a lot of times we will hire for character.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
As a former recruiter myself in those type roles, I would tell the student, if you could convince me that you're going to be a conscientious, hardworking employee, I'm interested.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yep.
Awesome.
Well, Lauren, this is Dawn. I actually have a quick question. I'm curious. I know there are various ways that ArcBest interviews candidates, and I thought it might be interesting for students to hear that. A lot of them may have experience going in and filling out an application and directly interviewing with someone face to face, but there are a lot of ways that recruiters interview nowadays. Can you kind of give some of those techniques that ArcBest use to connect with candidates?
Absolutely, and I'm glad you asked that question. I should have mentioned this in the presentation, but one of the different ways that we interview, especially now with our lifestyle shifting to this virtual world, we use a platform called HireView. It's essentially just virtual interviews, similar to a Skype. You can do it on your mobile device or computer. But we have two different versions of it. We have a HireView Live, which is similar to just, like I mentioned, a Skype meeting, where it's you and a hiring manager interacting live. Or we do a HireView on demand. And what that is, it's a pre-recorded interview. So our recruiters have filmed themselves asking a list of questions, and they will send this interview to you via email, and you have 48 hours to respond. So the great part about this is you can do it on your own time. You don't have, if you're currently working and you can't take a break to go complete an interview, good news, you can do it from home. So you do it at your own, on your own time, and you have 2 attempts to answer each question, and there's a time limit, and you just film yourself responding to the question that the recruiter asks. So that's been the major type of interview, Dawn, that we've relied on throughout this shift in recruiting during 2020 and 2021. Again, we found them to be really helpful. What's great is we can kind of send them to the hiring managers and say, hey, this great interview just came through, kind of watch how they interact. Is there, do they have a clean background? Are they presentable? Like I mentioned, at least be Ron Burgundy. Be a professional from the waist up at least, and show that you care. Because I know a lot of times we'll get some high reviews and we're watching them, and there's interesting posters or artwork in the background that I probably would prefer not to see, or you're wearing a Metallica t-shirt, not that I have anything against Metallica, but during an interview, just treat the higher view or the virtual interviews as you would an in-person. So because that's what companies are resorting to, so it's just as important as if you were meeting them face to face.
And just as a follow-up, that's great, because I do think it's hard when you haven't experienced maybe one of those type of interviews, or just the various levels. Sometimes companies take 2 or 3 interviews before they decide on someone. What are some good shorthand tips for them in preparation for the interview, in terms of, you told them to kind of research that company. If there was a top 5 that you look for to see if someone's prepared, what are some of those shorthand things that right off the bat if they've prepared for the interview or not?
That's a great question. So of course, research the company that you're interviewing with. See if you can find out things about their culture. If they have those core values and things like that. I know in our higher view interviews, we ask, one of our questions is, what value do you identify with the most? And I'm sure other companies do similar things. So culture fit is it's probably one of our, at the top of our list of important things to ensure someone, has a fit for. A couple other things, I think this is just good form for any type of interview. Before you interview, write out a list. Think about your experience. Maybe you don't have any work experience yet. Maybe you're still in school, but think about a time where, list out a failure, list out your biggest accomplishment, and then, maybe list out a team project that you were a part of, and then kind of go through each of those, and this won't take more than 20 minutes of your time, but dissect them. What went well? What didn't go well? What would you do differently? Because as a recruiter, what we're trying to understand and communicate to our hiring managers is, can this person learn from their mistakes? Mistakes are going to be made. I make them, but did this failure that I just list out in my preparation, did I take it and do something good with it? Or did I repeat that action? So I think just taking the time to really understand you, list out the failure, your accomplishment, a team project that you worked on, maybe you participated in sports. Those are all things, it won't take very long to write these out. And think about too, how would your professors, teachers, or previous supervisors, how would they describe you? And list out those qualities. So I think those things are probably, I think if you can do those basic things, the rest will be easy, because more times than not, you're going to get asked a question that will kind of direct you to answer one of those.
Awesome.
That's great. Yeah. I definitely think any interview is nerve-wracking, and it's great to have these kids know that having that preparation, if they go into it like they're studying for a test in a way, you usually do better in the interview, and once you're in there, you're a lot more relaxed and not searching for those answers, which comes off better. I wonder, Stephen, if we have any of the students that are on, if you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask the question, or you can type it in the chat.
They may be typing.
So it's a good time to plug the upcoming sessions, right? There's going to be an interview prep.
That's exactly right. So I was
Yep.
about to segue over into that. Thank you.
I stole your
This-
thunder. Sorry.
No, that's a-okay. So this is all a part of the signing day initiative. And so the goal for these sessions are to better prepare students to try to pursue a career opportunity we're going to connect them to. There may or may not be, hopefully, some ArcBest positions that are going to be included in signing day this year. So we're excited that these seniors are going to have the opportunity to maybe to apply and interview for some opportunities with your great company. There will be 2 more sessions that are going to come through this process. So the next upcoming one is on March the 8th, and we're going to have a resume workshop. We are going to figure out, maybe we're going to have a sweetener on that one. I want to hold off just in case we can't pull it off. We'll update everybody via email. But look for the next session on March the 8th, where we're going to have Mr. Ron Orrick share with us some resume tips and tricks, which I know, Lauren, you mentioned is how you guys vet candidates quickly for the little details. And so hopefully these will continue to be attended and be opportunities for students to better prepare themselves to maybe be in front of you for signing day. So we really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much.
It's been great. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Awesome. All right. Well, that's the conclusion of this
Good
session.
job,
We
Lauren.
appreciate everybody for joining.
Thanks, y'all. See ya.
Bye-bye.